Welcome into episode number 20 of the Boys Collective right here on 105 through the Van here on YouTube. It is Game Preview Wednesday. As a tradition unlike any other, the Cowboys playing at home on Thanksgiving Day. Kevin Gray alongside Super Bowl winning scout and 1/4 of the G-Bag Nation, Bryan Broaddus. Bryan, good to see you. Happy early Thanksgiving to you. And how are you feeling on this Wednesday?
Doing well, KG. I'm here at the studios at 105.3 The Fan, and they brought in this barbecue feast in front of me. So the smell is coming over the computer right now here in our prep room. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we got Peace-a-thon going on right now. So we're all kind of involved with that for a really good cause. And yeah, barbecue was brought in. So now I'm trying to do a show, concentrate, and not concentrate on barbecue. So that's what
sounds like. I need to make my way up there not too long from
Absolutely.
now. It sounds like the Cowboys host the Las Vegas Raiders on Thanksgiving Day. Yeah. It is something, Bryan, you worked for this organization. Before we get into the game preview, I'm interested in your perspective because you're someone who has obviously been with this organization in previous years, and you've had the chance to experience Thanksgiving Day Cowboys games. What is it like being with the organization and understanding, the significance of obviously a nationally televised game every year and the Cowboys being a part of the Thanksgiving tradition and what that means for not just the Cowboys, but for the NFL in general?
Yeah, I could go all the way back, KG, to 1992 when I first started with the Packers. Occasionally we'd play the Lions. That was my first experience. I go back before that in college. I remember some college games at Texas A&M. We played Arkansas like on a Thanksgiving Day. Or Texas, it was always something that you were playing in the old Southwest Conference and stuff. But the thing with the NFL, like I say, my first experience was with the Packers, and famously, if you remember, like Jason Garrett quarterbacking against the Packers, we actually thought, there were so many times we'd played the Cowboys and just not been able to win the game. And here's no Troy Aikman. Here's no real backup quarterback. And then we get smoked that day by Jason Garrett throwing the ball down the field, And so, yeah, it's actually a really, really, really big deal. And it's kind of a pain because of the short week. And there used to be a way where the Cowboys used to get back-to-back home games. They used to get a game on Sunday and then not have to travel. And then the Thursday game would be, so you got two games with both of them at home, and you kind of got a little bit of an advantage there. So, yeah, it's if you look at the history of the Cowboys, there have been some memorable games. I remember being in the stands when Clint Longley threw the ball. Roger Staubach gets knocked out in 74, and Clint Longley comes in and throws a ball to Drew Pearson for a game-winning touchdown. Just go back. Some of the great games that we've seen in Cowboy history have happened on Thanksgiving Day. How about the game against the Miami Dolphins? The famous let touching the ball, sleet, all that stuff. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy that, it's been such a part of, Tex Schramm had such a vision for doing the game, and the league said, yeah, well, we appreciate your vision. And, here you are, the Lions. Even though the Lions are playing this week, the Lions and the Bears, that game is going to get ratings. They always talk about, well, move the Lions out of there. Well, if you look at the numbers, it's not about the teams. People are going to watch the game no matter what because they're with their families, but they might not want to be talking to their families. They want to eat, they want to watch a game. So the numbers are going to be, if you look at it traditionally, people that argue to get the Cowboys or whatever, they've even added a game now. We have a nighttime game. It just shows you that the league's like, listen, there are eyeballs on these television sets or tablets or however you watch the game because it's football, and that's the great thing about it. It's a meal, it's fellowship, it's football. It's all those things. And the Cowboys have been a huge part of that. And my really professional career, being on the other side of it against them and then being with them, I just every year know that I'm going to be working Thanksgiving Day, and I'm blessed and grateful for it. And I love the fact that we do have football on that day, and then they've added another game to it as well.
Speaking of ratings, before we move to the Cowboys and the Raiders game on Thursday.
Kansas City game.
Yeah, the
Those
Kansas
numbers.
City Chiefs and the
Yeah.
Cowboys did 28.1 million viewers on that Sunday afternoon game, the most watched NFL game this season for Fox or for any network in general. So it just shows you again the juggernaut that is the Cowboys, but the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, the star powers in that game was clearly had a lot of eyeballs on it. So of course, even before that game, the Cowboys had already played in 3 of the top 5 most watched games already this season. You can add the most now watched game on the ledger for the Cowboys this season.
You knew the numbers were going to be huge. You really did. You knew those numbers were going to be huge because people wanted to see if Dallas could really beat Kansas City, but people want to know, is Kansas City really back? That was going to be the big litmus test for the Chiefs. Could they beat a team like the Cowboys that were really, really a good team? And could the Cowboys beat a team that had been in the Super Bowl the last 2 years? That's a lot of the country around the world was very interested. I wonder what the numbers were if you talk about worldwide, because again, we have fans overseas in Europe and stuff like that they don't count those numbers, I don't think. And I'm sure there were even more than 28 million people watching that game.
Sure. Well, speaking of being back, the Cowboys, as we go into our Cowboys-Raiders game preview here on the Boys Collective here on 105 Through the Fan. Make sure you subscribe to 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube and all of our social media platforms, including 105throughthefan.com. The Raiders at 5-5 visit the Dallas Cowboys at 7-3. And the Cowboys are starting to get some good news when it comes to the injury front.
Yeah.
Tyron Smith looks like he will be ready to go on Thursday against the Las Vegas Raiders. Still awaiting official word on whether or not CeeDee Lamb will be able to go on Thursday himself, because he's been in concussion protocol, practiced on Wednesday. If all goes well, he will be ready to go on Thursday as well. And additionally, and this is for future reference, DeMarcus Lawrence's 21-day activation period has now started as well, with the hopes, with reports coming out from Calvin Watkins and others of the Dallas Morning News, that he may be ready to go as soon as next Thursday against the New Orleans Saints. So as this season has gone on, we've been saying this, Bryan, look, this team needs to get healthy,
Right.
It sounds like help may be on the way, especially in the form of left tackle Tyron Smith, and hopefully for CeeDee Lamb on Thursday against the Raiders.
Yeah, from my reports, and again, Brianna Dix was one last night who came out and put out some stuff and her sources, and I kind of confirmed some of the things that she was dealing with. It was about Tyron Smith is good to go. He's going to be at left tackle. CeeDee Lamb practiced today. All he has to do is see a final doctor. The word is, though, that once he sees that doctor, he's likely going to be good to go. So I believe you're going to have both those players available. I don't see any problems with that for the game tomorrow. You mentioned Tank Lawrence. The plan for Tank Lawrence was to start to get him reps, start to get him work, start to get him ready to go. The plan, I believe, is to have him play in that New Orleans game. And we'll also potentially see if Randy Gregory can go as well. So a lot of good things kind of materialize. And it would have been nice if the Cowboys wouldn't have lost the Broncos game or lost the KC game. And, you're able to kind of, but it is what it is right now. A chance to go 8-3 and then get some players back against, say, a New Orleans team that's playing on Thanksgiving themselves against the Bills. They're reeling a little bit. They don't have their quarterback situation really set. So chance to win tomorrow, go to New Orleans the following Thursday, maybe get another win, and then kind of finish this thing out the way it needs to be finished out.
So if you're a Cowboys fan, that's good news to hear as the Cowboys get ready to host the Raiders, a team that's gone through a lot this season in the Raiders with the Henry Ruggs situation, Damon Arnett, John Gruden resigning, Mr. Fasaccia taking over as the interim head coach there. It's been a lot that Mark Davis and this organization has gone through, but yet at 5-5 still find themselves, yes, with back-to-back disappointing losses against the Chiefs and then the Bengals at home last Sunday, but still a very dangerous football team that has a lot of weapons that could give the Cowboys problem. Let's start offensively for the Raiders. What kind of problems do you think Derek Carr, Mr. Waller, and those guys can present to the Cowboys offensively that Dan Quinn will have to deal with defensively on Thursday?
Yeah, I think the whole thing with Waller, again, this is that stretch where you're talking about you had to deal with these tight ends 3 straight games, with Pitts and then Kelsey and now Waller. And Waller is Yeah, this is a big guy. It's a big physical down the field player. He's had a couple of drops along the way, but for the most part, you throw him the ball down the field, he's going to find a way to make a play. They just don't have, other than like Hunter Renfrow. And we've seen in the past, you kind of say, oh, well, hey, the Raiders don't have a threat. They don't have a guy. I mean, Zay Jones, Deshaun Jackson, Bryan Edwards, kind of guys. So you don't want to create anything for them to have some success. But I think you're going to have to worry about Hunter Renfrow coming out of the slot. And I think you're absolutely going to have to worry about Darren Waller in this football game. And we've talked about, hey, how do you cover? How do you do all these things? Is it throw corners at him? Is it throw safeties at him? I mean, for the most part, I think they did a pretty good job with Kelsey last week. But the problem was they had some busts in the secondary where he was running wide open. And
sure.
You can't have that happen. You got to be on. And the problem with a short week is, how much have you really prepped for this game? How much are you able to really say, okay, we're honing in on what the Raiders are doing? And you really haven't. That's the problem. You just haven't. And, you're going to go up there. You're going to probably have a pretty basic game plan. You're probably going to have a pretty basic game plan defensively, how you want to play. And maybe the one thing that the Cowboys have been able to show throughout the year is they've been able to adjust on the move. I think they did a great job of adjusting. After they went down 16-0, they did a great job of adjusting to Kansas City's offense. That's my hope this week too, that Dallas at home feeds on the crowd, offense gets rolling, and then they're able to adjust along the way to make sure they have Hunter Renfrow covered and make sure that they have Darren Waller as well. I will throw this out there also too, KG. The Raiders haven't really run the football. They haven't. They really don't run
which
it
is
all
surprising because Josh Jacobs is a really good
very
back.
surprising. And I think it might have something to do with John Gruden not being the coach there anymore. But Josh Jacobs can be dangerous. They throw him the ball. They throw Kenyon Drake the ball. But you can hand the ball to Josh Jacobs. He's a physical, tough runner. He's a stiff arm, lower the shoulder, bounce off guys. Dallas has to be careful that they don't allow this to turn into what the Broncos did, where you're like, okay, they got a physical back. Now, Kansas City was able to get some yards last week. And, but I think if Dallas can get up on the Raiders, make the Raiders have to just become one-dimensional, I think that really takes out of it that Josh Jacobs factor, the Kenyon Drake factor out of there. And hopefully, it's about Derek Carr and Hunter Renfrow and those guys having to try and beat the Cowboys.
A little lighthearted note, Deshaun Jackson plays for this team, and we know how he likes to catch 75-yard touchdown passes against the Dallas Cowboys.
There's going to be a point in time where Deshaun Jackson is probably going to get a deep ball on a double move on Diggs or something like that. Absolutely.
So watch out for that potentially on Thursday.
But man, it's a big offensive line, KG. It's a big line, and maybe the quickness of the Cowboy front will help them. With how big they are, maybe the movement with Armstrong and with Parsons and O'Diggy and, those guys, maybe the little quickness will help the Cowboys in this football game. Hopefully the crowd noise will help the Cowboys in this football game, because this is a massive offensive line that I'm surprised they just don't come out and try and mash on you. And maybe tomorrow they will try and mash on you.
Yeah, they got some big boys up front. Colton Miller, Alex Leatherwood.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They got some big boys up front. So I'm interested then, because I'm thinking the name that keeps coming in my mind, especially when we're talking about Darren Waller, Jaron Kearse, and his ability to be versatile. Will you see a little bit of him try to match up with Waller a little bit? I know he's a little bit more physical and may be able to try and use some of that against him.
I think it's really all hands on deck. I think it's to me, that's the guy you try and bracket. I mean, you try and play with a safety, maybe a corner. You don't let him have much separation in routes. And Kearse could be a factor here. I kind of feel like that maybe a Diggs once in a while on that.
Okay.
A lot depending on what the group of officials you get. I don't think the Cowboys took advantage of the officials last week that weren't going to call defensive holding. I think if the officials are going to let you play, you got to be ready to play right along with them, because we get officials that call defensive holding, illegal contact. That John Hussey's crew last week wasn't calling that.
Yeah, they let a lot of stuff go last week.
Yeah, you had a hands to the face penalty. You had a hands to the face penalty that was called. But other than that, there was a lot of banging and beating going on downfield. I'll be interested to see if they let the Cowboys and the Raiders play in this football game, and you have to be able to adjust. If they're going to let you hold, by all means, hold in this football game. Don't give up anything on that back end.
Third down is going to be key for this team, as it has been all season long. The Cowboys this season have held opponents to 39 of 121 on third down in 2021, which is 32.2%. That is second in the National Football League this season. So the Cowboys' ability to get teams off the field on third down is going to be key, I think, in this game again against Derek Carr in this offense.
Yeah, three of the last four games, you go back to Minnesota. Denver was a bad game, but then you turn around, and you look at the situation with Atlanta and then with Kansas City. I mean, they've done a really good job of getting off the field and making those corrections and playing. So hopefully at home again, that's something that they can continue to build on.
So let's switch to the offensive side of things for the Cowboys. Kellen Moore, of course, the offensive coordinator for this team, came under a little bit of fire last week for some of the play calling and some of the ways that he went about attacking Steve Spagnuolo's defense. You give them a lot of credit. Chris Jones was an absolute monster in the interior for them. The Cowboys are going to be facing a young man by the name of Maxi Crosby, who can get after the quarterback pretty good. How does Kellen Moore go about attacking Gus Bradley's defense, knowing that Mr. Crosby could be a major factor for their pass rush?
Okay, KT, what you got to know about Gus Bradley is he's also got Rod Marinelli on staff there. And it's a lot of that is you could see the same thing watching the Raiders play. Upfield, 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 upfield. Do you trap Crosby? Do you trap Ngakoue? Do you trap as they're going up the field? Do you pull guys, trap, and run in behind that? I could see some of that happening in this football game. Last week against Kansas City, the ball needed to be, we talked about that. The one big damn run they had last week was a misdirection run. What were you and I talking about? Get Kansas City running one way and then take the ball back the other. They had a 31-yard run. We never saw that. It was football in a phone booth. Straight ahead, straight ahead, straight. No, you can't. That left side of the line is not equipped to play like that. Now with Tyron Smith being back, it could be better off. But to me, I'm letting those guys come up the field. I'm trapping them. I'm turning on them. I'm letting them go. There's times where Crosby wants to shoot down inside, take him down where he wants to go, bounce the ball to the outside. So I'm running the ball. Not maybe so much at Crosby, but in Ngakoue, I'm running the ball at him because I kind of feel like that he's the lighter of the guys and he wants to go upfield, kick him out and run the ball up inside. And all of a sudden, the waggles, the boots, all that stuff where you're faking the runs, and that stuff is going to open up. I mean, last week the Bengals were able to hit the very first play of the game. They run a waggle off. I guarantee the Cowboys will probably do the same thing with Dalton Schultz. Put him on the backside, act like he's going to block, and then work him out on the boot, throw a game, probably get 12 in the first play of the game. But that's kind of where the Cowboys, if they're going to run the ball, I think it's going to be at these defensive ends, on the edge, down block, get guys on the outside, make these Raiders safeties, with Abram and, those guys, make them have to come downfield and make tackles. They want to do that. And once you get those guys flying forward, then boom, ball over the top right there. You got Lamb, you got Gallup, you got guys that can make that catch down the field.
Trayvon Morgan's been really good for them.
Morgan has played well for them too. Yes.
Out of TCU for them this year. I'm interested in this question real quick on offense, because for a guy as athletic as Dak Prescott is, should Kellen Moore get him more on the move a little bit to try and create some things where he's being able to, because he's capable of making throws on the move to try and maybe create some of that misdirection and use that aggressiveness against the Raiders a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's the problem that they worry about with Kellen Moore. It's like when Dak gets on the edge and it's covered, what does Dak do? Run. He runs. And I don't know if Kellen Moore wants to get him on that outside that much, because he knows damn good and well he'll tell Dak not to run. And what will Dak do? Dak will run. And then all of a sudden he's exposing himself to a tackle. But you look at the quarterbacks, like I was watching the Steeler-Charger game. The Chargers are backed up on their own 2-yard line. And Herbert goes back to pass, man coverage, everybody's out. He runs. I mean, they have a 96-yard touchdown. He must have had 40-something yards running on the play, on the drive. I mean, I think that they're just really worried about Dak getting on the outside and then everything being covered and him taking off and running and being exposed. But I'm with you on that. He could do that. But they also might worry about Dak. What's the one thing that Dak has always talked about when they've had these losses? He's talked about his mechanics. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're worried about his feet not being set, body position, arm angle. Maybe they're worried about that. If they keep doing that, then all of a sudden his mechanics continue to break down. That seems to be something that every time he has to go back when they have a loss and they have some inaccuracy problems or accuracy problems, it's Dak Prescott going, oh, well, it's my mechanics, and maybe I think there's some too where Dak is kind of holding the ball because these receivers just aren't winning. Especially in that.
That was tough last week against Kansas City.
They weren't winning.
Sure.
Yeah, they weren't winning against Denver, and they sure in the hell weren't winning against Kansas City. And when they were winning, they were dropping balls. So I wouldn't be. I'll tell you another thing too. I wouldn't be surprised you see more Malik Turner this game instead of Noah Brown or maybe even Cedric Wilson. If you get guys that are fighting the football, Malik Turner, at least when you throw him the ball, he makes catches. So I would think that maybe Malik Turner might be one of those under the radar guys that we kind of talk about on when we get back to breaking down this tape.
Interesting coaching matchup here. Mike McCarthy, Rich Bisaccia, of course, the interim head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's get into some X factors as far as this game is concerned. No Amari Cooper in this game again with being out with COVID-19. You started to mention some of the receivers, specifically Malik Turner. Who are some other guys that you're looking at in this game that say, hey, offensively, defensively, this one or two players needs to have this effect on the game to be able to help this team and the Cowboys get a win Thursday?
As much as we like to talk about Tyron Smith on the left side and how he can just dominate games over there, Lyle Collins has got to play a pretty damn good game over here because these defensive ends are going to switch. And they're probably thinking, okay, if you had to waste a rush, you're going to waste a rush against Tyron Smith. Who are you going to put on to get a rush? I think they're going to put it on Lyle Collins. So to me, Lyle Collins cannot be sloppy with his technique, can't be sloppy with his hands, can't be sloppy with his feet, because Max Crosby will break you down. When you lean, he'll spin. And the next thing you know, if the coverage is good, Dak's holding, sack fumble. You gotta avoid that. You just got to avoid that. X factor for me in this football game is Lyle Collins needs to play like the Pro Bowl player that we feel like he's capable of playing.
Yeah, because last week, Chris Jones, give him a lot of credit, but at times Frank, he's moving up and down the line. Frank Clark at times got home as well. There were times where I saw Lyle Collins, and again, maybe some of the crowd noise was a factor because at one point he didn't get off the line, against Kansas City. But I agree with you. Lyle Collins has got to be able to solidify the right side of the offensive line like we thought he was going to coming into this season, especially now knowing you won't have to necessarily worry about your job at this point because Tyron Smith is back, on the left side. I think for me, I'm going to go to the running game, and I'm going to go with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. You started to mention some of the things that they can do in terms of running at these defensive ends. As good as Elliott has been throughout the most part of the season, the running game itself has struggled, in the last few games. I'm interested to see if he is able, kind of go into your point with the offensive line, how he is able to bounce back. We know he's been really good in pass protection, really good in certain areas. I really want to see this ground game get going to really hopefully dictate some tempo and obviously strike some balance the way that the Cowboys have been able to do when they've been winning football games this year. So for me, I think my X factors are going to be both Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Can they get the run game going to be able to use that some of that aggressiveness against the Raiders on Sunday, which is interesting because you mentioned Rod Marinelli on the other side. He knows his team backwards and forwards, so I'm interested to see what kind of nuggets he and Gus Bradley will come up with in this game against the Cowboys. So let's go then to how this game will ultimately turn out in our minds. Obviously, a Raiders team that's still in the thick of it when it comes to the AFC playoff picture at 5-5. The Cowboys, losers of 2 of their last 3. need a win, I think, to not only, again, just for bounce back purposes, but
you mentioned,
going to New Orleans the following week. How do the Cowboys ultimately, in your mind, get this done on Thursday when you look at the totality of the game plan on both sides of the ball, including special teams here?
Yeah, I think it's KG. They cannot allow the Vegas Raider pass rush to affect them in this football game. They've got to be able to show some balance. They've got to be able to get the ball out of Dak's hands quick. They got to take advantage of some of the stuff that the Raiders are going to try and do aggressively defensively. I think you have to be ready for that. You can't turn this into a shootout game. Their pass rush, in my opinion, is better than your pass rush. And so you do not want it to come down to you have to block and all of a sudden you have to drive the ball. And, I know the Raiders have had their struggles at times, but you can't let this turn into Crosby and Ngakoue and those guys running up the field and then sacking your guy and the ball being on the ground and them getting short fields. That just can't happen in this football game. I think you're right about the running game. I think you're right about the balance. I think all these things. I think the Cowboys defense is good enough to hold up. I mean, they after what happened against Denver, I think that last week they showed really the last couple of weeks, Atlanta, and then to hold Kansas City to 3 points in the second half, I think is a huge confidence booster for them. And I could see them doing the same thing. So I like the Cowboys in this game. I don't think it's going to be a terribly high scoring game, even though I think both teams are capable, but I've kind of got it in that range where it's Cowboys 28 and then the Raiders like 21. I think the Cowboys are probably anywhere between a 5 to 7 point team better than what the Raiders are right now.
Interesting note on the pass rush, Micah Parsons, who's been a house on fire all season long, generating a quarterback pressure on 19.4% of his 181 pass rush snaps in 2021. That is the second highest pressure rate in the league this year with a minimum of 75 pass rushes. If you had told me coming into the season, Micah Parsons is going to be your best pass rusher coming in, I would have told you, what? I don't think so.
There's a lot
that's
of
exactly
things,
what he's turned out to be.
There's a lot of things that we've learned about Dan Quinn, this coaching staff, and Micah Parsons. We've learned a lot about them this year so far.
We will see if the Cowboys are able to handle their business at home on Thanksgiving Day. They will be playing their 54th Thanksgiving Day game. And then, of course, at AT&T Stadium, you can hear it right here on 105 through the Fan with the voice of America's team, Brad Sham, Babe Laufenberg, and Christy Scales, who will be patrolling the sidelines. This game will also be on CBS. CBS for sure. This game will be on CBS. That means Jim Nance, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson will be on the call on CBS for Thanksgiving Day. Should be a fun one as always. It's always a fun time when the Cowboys get a chance to play at home. And this time the Raiders get to come to town. The Cowboys trying to get a win against an AFC West opponent because the AFC West is beating up on the Cowboys this year. We'll see if they can do so at home against the Raiders. For the Super Bowl winning scout, Bryan Broaddus, 1/4 of the G-Bag Nation. Of course, my name is Kevin Gray. You can find us on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. You can find Bryan on Twitter at Bryan Broaddus. This has been the Boys Collective episode number 20. The Cowboys take on the Raiders on Thanksgiving Day. Let's see if the Cowboys can make it 8-3. Bryan, as always, thank you so much for the time. Happy Thanksgiving to you, and looking forward to talking to you next week.
You too, KG. Take care. Happy holidays out there, folks.
Appreciate it.